The man's face was covered in sand, but he dared not raise his hand to wipe it away. Behind him lay a 100-meter cliff. One slip would mean certain death. Gritting his teeth and locking his brows, he focused all his strength on his index fingers, gripping the loose sand for dear life. Yet the sand was too soft to hold his weight. Slowly he began sliding downward, completely out of control, barely managing to stop his fall. Just then, his phone rang inside his backpack. He tentatively raised his right hand to reach for it, but before he could grab it, his body slid down several more inches. His heart pounded, his body trembled, but he wasn't ready to give up. After steadying his breath, he carefully raised his left hand and reached for the backpack zipper. But as he was about to grasp the phone, his balance failed and he plummeted downward once more. By sheer force of will, the man clung to the edge of the cliff, narrowly avoiding death. But his ordeal was far from over. Above him, the sand was loose and unstable. Below him, jagged rocks awaited. One wrong move would mean the end. Fear consumed him, spreading like poison through his body. But then, an idea struck him. He started whispering to himself, counting the intervals of the waves crashing against the rocks below. After several rounds of calculation, he seized the right moment, turned his body, and leaped. He hit the water. Though he survived the fall, the shallow waves caused him to slam his lower back into a rock, leaving him momentarily unconscious. When he regained consciousness, he managed to swim to the surface and drag himself onto a nearby reef. For a moment, relief washed over him. He was alive. But then, pain seared through his palm. A horrifying 10-centimeter gash ran across his hand, so deep it was unbearable to look at. Yet, he couldn't afford to dwell on it. After gathering his strength, he tried to leave the reef, but with his first step, he collapsed onto the rocks and blacked out again. Hours passed before he was revived by the lapping waves. When he tried to move, he realized his legs were completely numb. The fall had shattered his pelvis, and now his feet were losing all sensation. Frantically, he remembered his phone, but it had been completely dead. Helpless and desperate, he screamed into the vast emptiness around him, but there was no response. Determined to survive, he tore off his shirt and wrapped his wounded hand as best he could. Hours passed, and all he managed to find was a broken cup, a roll of tin foil, and a fishnet buried in the sand. Thunder rumbled in the distance, and he placed the cup in a strategic spot, dug a pit in the sand and lined it with the foil to collect water. But the rain was cruel. It teased with thunder and lightning, but yielded only a few drops. 2 days without water had pushed him to the brink. As desperation took over, he grabbed the foil and tried to suck any trace of moisture from it, but there was nothing. On the third day, too weak to move, he lay motionless against a rock. A seagull slowly approached, pecking curiously at his rotting wound. The pain jolted him awake. Enraged, he swatted the bird away and clutched a wooden stick, hoping to catch it for food, but he failed. With every passing moment, his strength waned further. Even crawling became a Herculean effort. Then, in the distance, he saw something. It was a broken surfboard. The sight was bittersweet. Once that surfboard symbolized freedom and power over the waves. Now it mocked him, a man whose lower body no longer worked. Overcome with frustration, he threw it aside. Time passed. The tide began to rise, washing away his desperate messages scrawled in the sand. His wounds worsened, and his mind grew foggy. Lying there, he stared at the ocean, the stage where he had once thrived, now a reminder of how far he'd fallen. But as despair threatened to consume him, anger and determination ignited within. He grabbed the surfboard and dragged himself toward the waves. With unwavering resolve, he entered the water. Wave after wave knocked him back, but he refused to give up. Slowly, he pushed deeper into the sea, his eyes filled with a fierce determination to survive. Hours later, utterly exhausted, his body gave out. He sank into the depths, his mind calm, almost at peace. And then, his life was saved miraculously by a rescuer. After his recovery, he would come to the shore and remember the struggle he once had here.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe, like and share our content. See you in the next one.